Welcome to Gumball Love. I'm Melissa Ledger, professional relationship coach, creator of Gumball Love and the Back to You Academy. If you're ready to stop the cycle of toxic men, get through the breakup once and for all, and finally get back to you, you are in the right place. This journey is about healing your heart, and you are encouraged to take the pace that is just right for you. In the process, you will build a foundation of confidence and strength that will make you unshakable, I promise. So get ready to level up your mindset and your lifestyle as you awaken the seeds of greatness just waiting to burst into full bloom. Let's do this. Welcome back to another episode of Gumball Love. I'm your host, Melissa Ledger. All right, today I have my love with me again, and we are going to do a bunch of Q&A, and I'm going to give you an idea of what his perspective of Gumball Love was, and just all kinds of things. We're going to get into Twilight, 50 Shades of Grey, Sex and the City, what guys are really thinking, the guy's perspective, which you know I don't always love to assume one guy speaks for all men, but here you are again, Ian Roberts. So, we wanted to tell our love story, which is amazing. So if you guys haven't heard that, go back to podcast 111. And so today I wanted to just kind of answer a bunch of questions that people had. So first, what was your first impression of Gumball Love? Because when you got here from Canada, we had talked a little bit about it, but the pandemic kind of took over, and then you were here, you were in my office, you could kind of see it all, the nuts and bolts, and I really started getting more engaged around it. And as you saw the flavors of attention and the whole concept, like what was your first reaction when you really kind of got it?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, it was a lot more complicated than I would have imagined when, we talked about all that stuff, even back in 2014, about, coaching girls and, relationship coaching. I just thought how great that was, and didn't really have much of, deep insight into what I really came to discover was, from my perspective, more of a behavioral science, and, human coping mechanism, survival mechanism type of approach and view on human relationships or people's interpersonal relationships. So obviously there was a lot to take in, and it took me, I think, probably a good better part of about 4 to 6 weeks to really, I think we talked about this in the last episode, where I will take a little bit of an adversarial view when I'm looking at something, not with you or with anybody, just when I'm trying to absorb it myself and find out, okay, what is this concept? What is this view on people's relationships and human behavior? And what is it trying to predict? What is it not predicting? And I try to kind of like argue it through in my own mind. And when I really kind of got through to the nuts and bolts of the attention-seeking pieces of it, in addition to the fantasy part, which I thought was really something I'd never really...
Yeah, I remember arguing about fantasy. Like, you were like, how is this such a big part of attention-seeking behavior? Like, why the fantasy that we get from 50 Shades of Grey or Twilight or Titanic
or Cinderella.
Or, yeah.
Any of the other things coming up from, depending on your generation, obviously. So...
And just to add to that, the fairy tale and the romance plays to the intensity that we get from the Gumball Love experience. So we are primed with thinking that, okay, I'm going to meet this guy and any number of things can happen, but the ideal is to be like Kate Middleton. Like, that's the pinnacle of, like, I'm going to be the princess and I'm going to be in a castle and my whole life is going to change because I'm with this guy. And my whole identity becomes, like, for a girl, it's a girl just sent me this meme where this giraffe is standing there looking at Ariel, the mermaid, and the giraffe is like the therapist, and he's like, so you basically changed everything about yourself to fit into his world. And she was like, Yeah, basically. It was like
Yeah, it seems like a kind of a standard script in terms of we'll call them the media fantasy industrial complex. Not to pick on them as a dark world entity, but I really think a lot of what is sort of taught through life and really comes through from movies and from TV and media and stuff like that really filters down into our youth. And as we grow up and we're around our families and we're around our friends and classmates, specifically school, to me is kind of like that people forget about it later on in life, but as they kind of go up through like grade school and junior high and high school, that's kind of like the petri dish of your modern day behavior. Because when you're talking about school, and from what I don't know what's pre-K, like 4 or 5 years old, from then until age 18, you're spending about 80% of your waking hours in school around your friends and your classmates and teachers in that kind of environment. And that really, to me, also transfers on into the work world when you're, again, spending like 80% of your waking time amongst people who are in that kind of like community. So as those behaviors start to filter out of the movies and sort of every other aspect of society, kind of like what you're taught as you're growing up, you can really start to understand how those things can shape how individuals and groups of people interact with each other. And the focus of every kid seems to be like, how can I fit in? How can I become the popular one? How can I get attention for me? Because that's something that's important to kind of validate myself and prove my self-worth. So, when we start talking about this back in early 2021, about the individual flavors of attention and whatnot, and then the fantasy part, and I really started to see how that different world of between what guys are taught and what girls are taught. And just because we're from different planets, as they say in whatever.
No, we hate that guy,
yeah,
John Gray.
Yeah.
I was given permission by my editor to be against John Gray. We are not from different planets. But
people are kind of, programmed through their upbringing in different ways, right? Different genders, different sort of.
What do you think?
So,
what do you think the little boy version of Cinderella is? Like, what do you think? When you think back to when you were little, what was the?
Well, I think it depends on, I'd have to probably think a little bit more deeply on the, depending on the generation and what you're interested in and whether it was sports or...
You weren't thinking, I'm going to get married and become a prince. You were probably thinking, I'm going to be a baseball player or I'm going to be a basketball player.
Yeah. And it depended on your family and what kind of tools you had around you, like physically, right? Like if you're, if you were athletically gifted or if you were academically gifted or in music or something else like that, that kind of maybe shifts your approach as to what you would want to kind of focus on. But everybody kind of wanted to be the most popular, the rock star, the best athlete, whatever would kind of get you in the crosshairs of the most amount of maybe praise or attention or something along those lines. That I think every guy kind of wanted to be the headliner in the local paper or that professional athlete that they grew up idolizing in a sense.
Okay, so fast forward to when
and that's again we're pre-puberty now, right? So we're not really bringing girls into the scene yet, because at that point I think guys are we look at girls and still kind of, I guess a lot has changed in these current years. You got 8-year-old kids doing God knows what now, but I would say, not until that kind of, 10, 11, 12 did you start to grow into your man body and the man things of the sort of testosterone fuel world of kind of how you're starting to grow. and your priorities change, and what you view as like the quote unquote fantasy of being, the guy does change too. So,
but what do you think, like, guys and I realize, because I can think of, I have cousins that met their guys in high school, and they did have good relationships that stayed. So you can meet the love of your life in high school, but in general, what do you think of guys? I guess what I'm getting at is guys aren't thinking, this is my wife and I'm going to live happily ever after. And so I'm trying to like help girls see that guys grow up, I'm going to be a baseball player, I'm going to be an astronaut. Girls are thinking, they're planning their weddings, they have princess dolls, we have Barbies, we have princesses. Like, there's this whole world that girls live in that's focused on this goal. And then, from I think I remember in 8th grade, 90210. So you guys were watching 90210 and then Melrose Place. And for those out there that are younger than us, they revamped 90210, so we can still reference it. It's just a redone version, which actually was pretty good. But you know what I mean? Like, I don't know what guys' perspectives were of those shows and how they were thinking of relationships. But for girls, we're like, it was Brenda and... what was his name? Dylan. Yeah, it was like Brenda and Dylan, these dysfunctional relationships, but they were what everyone was.
Exciting.
They looked exciting.
It's like, oh yeah, I want to be, that guy, right? That would have been the kind of guy that they would have been like, yeah, I want to be like him. He's the badass. He is, he's the one that is very mysterious and all the girls want to be with him and that kind of thing. So it's just... it varies by generation and, what kind of like media and other things you were around as you grew up. But
it's like we were all trying to be what we saw on TV, what we saw in the movies, what we saw in school, what we saw the coolest person do. Nobody was saying, figure out who you are and be okay and love yourself, right? So this is, I think, why it's so hard when people are like, oh, just love yourself and know your worth, and it just gets like annoying hearing that because
you've been kind of trained your entire life to try to be somebody else who you think is going to be the person that other people will follow and heap praise upon and validate and all that kind of thing.
Yeah. So did you, when you were dating in New York, did you see, now that you look back, did you feel like they were expecting, what were they expecting?
I think it just manifests differently depending on
like what? Give me an example.
Where their background was, right? So Tina, Tiffany, whatever type of girl, Jersey Shore style, right, is looking for a particular type of fantasy. The muscle guy, the guys, Jim Tan Laundry, yes. All that kind of stuff. The car has all the popular friends.
But how would she show up where she would ask, like, were you getting like...
Oh, yeah.
Like, how did you know, like, okay,
they're like trying to like scope out, okay, well, what do you do for work? How much money do you make?
Would they ask how much money you made?
Yeah, and some directly, yes, but
wow.
But for the most part, it's just fishing around. You're so tall and you're wearing a suit, which we have to wear for work, so it wasn't that sort of fancy or anything. It's not like I dressed in suits on a weekend, but. Yeah, so you would get that vibe, like, ooh, you have a corporate card, you're out entertaining all these people, you're kind of like moving and shaking, and they like that kind of thing. So, I have a pretty good idea what this person's all about,
Yeah.
So, but yes, lots of people were looking for a particular thing, and, hey, if I wanted to take the time to go and research what that person's upbringing was like, I would probably be pretty confident that you go back and that's the kind of thing that they were kind of brought up to say, this is your ideal life. This is the kind of guy you want, and not like, hey, go and find your dreams and actually discover who you are and find your worth and all those kind of things. This is, whether it's your parents, depending on
like this is what's going to bring you happiness. Like if you find this kind of guy and he fits in this mold, then this is what will make you happy. I mean, this is what all of the Hallmark movies, they're running right now, one after the other, whether it's the holiday season or if they're listening after the holiday season. Like, Hallmark is always running that story of you're in your life and you're feeling lonely and sad. And then it's always the guy from New York comes into town. And then
he's at the bookshop.
He's at the bookshop, or you happen to have a Christmas ornament store in this small town. Like, it's just, but it's like there's always like the guy saves the girl. And so that's where I wanted to help girls see, like, that can be obvious to a guy that is not a gumball guy. That's not, he doesn't want to be, you didn't want to save the girl. I mean, you just wanted to go out and meet and have, dates and get to know each other. But don't you feel like that puts so much pressure on a guy when girls are standing there with those hopes?
Yeah, yes, but I don't want to discount the realm in which guys grow up, right? And if you want, we have our own, versions of fantasy that we're brought up with and sort of, socialized into us through our upbringing and the people that we spend time around and what we think is important. So, a lot of times, I would probably say more often than not, you would find, a lot of my friends or, other guys that I would know through other people. Yeah, they kind of had an idea of what they wanted. And that was maybe, they want to have the hot girlfriend who's got, maybe the fashion background, or she's, got some other kind of, maybe, could be kind of the reverse. Maybe the guy is gold digging on his own and he wants to find a girl with the trust fund, or she's very wealthy and, probably less likely. Guys are probably more intimidated by a, independently wealthy, successful entrepreneurial woman. Not me, not this guy.
Yeah.
But there's all types, right? Mm-hmm. And, a lot of times you would hope and expect that they would know what they're doing, but they don't, right? Mm-hmm. And this is what I discovered through this process of working through all this and talking about it with you, is that this behavior is everywhere, and nobody has really done much to ever really analyze it, as far as I can tell. Mm-hmm. And not just, from the psychiatrist and psychology world, they have looked at attention-seeking behavior, but not in conjunction with, with how you've kind of conceptually come up with it, with conjunction and overlaid and paralleled with the fantasy of how you grow up and what movies you're watching and what the expectations are of a particular type of relationship. And so when you get around one of these guys who's like super charismatic or, the other flavors that we talk about, he could be really down on himself. You feel like you need to take care of him, or, he's very sort of like sexually aggressive, and you're like, oh, that must mean like I'm the hottest thing ever. Mm-hmm. He's probably got his own stuff going on. Delve into that world too much, but I think that what I discovered in kind of digging deep into this concept with you is that this is like a behavioral pattern and really kind of like a behavioral science approach to understanding human behavior and human motivations. And it's, to me, when we start talking about the assessment that you and I have worked on, previously known as the Gumball Love Quiz, now the Gumball Love Assessment, we spent, I don't know how many, probably 12, 14 hours and maybe close to 20 hours going through all of the questions, separate them into the 8 different categories.
So let's stop so people know what we're talking about. So the Gumball Love Assessment is basically the quiz you take to see, okay, is this a gumball guy? Is he addicted to attention? And if he is addicted to attention, how bad is it? And then also, what flavors is he into? What flavors of attention? So really quick, I just was thinking of this. What do you think the worst flavors are when you think about the 8? What do you think the worst ones are when it comes to, is it the arouse me player? Is it the guy that's the drama king that's always kind of argumentative, picking fights?
To me, it's all about the severity. And at some point, you're off the scale of being an attention-seeking gumball guy and you're into sociopath. But yeah, I think it just depends on the individual guy, how bad it is, and then obviously how frequently and how severe it is. But I think a lot of times to me, it's how susceptible the particular girl is to that type of behavior, right? So whether, they grew up around this type of guy and thought that this was the kind of guy that they wanted to be with, as they were growing up, or they were told through the movies or through their family, schoolmates, whatever, that this is the kind of guy that you want. And if he's not like this, if he's not super exciting, if he's not, really sexually aggressive with you, if he's not this, if he's not that, if he's not in demand, right? So let's talk about the chase me guy or the compete for me guy. It depends. To me, it's the worst guy is the very severe, attention seeking behavior that matches up with what the girl is most susceptible to. That's the worst, like caustic, like acidic relationship you can have, because I'm going to say it's not like codependency, but you can kind of like work through that for a while before it just becomes so traumatic on the girl, and she's quote unquote used to it, because maybe that's the kind of thing that she was, fantasizing about through her upbringing and what her family told her she needed to have, and that type of guy. But to me, the worst kind of guy is the one that is when he finds or, meets up and matches up with a girl who's most susceptible to those kind of particular behaviors.
So if somebody takes this quiz, let's just say, because it's not available to the public yet, it's only available to people that are doing the coaching package, the Level Up for Love coaching package that we're releasing after the first of the year, but we're giving early access to it as soon as the page goes up. So if you are interested, you can reach out to us, because you are actually going to join me for one of the sessions. So there's 4 one-on-one coaching sessions, and Ian will be
deep inside the mind of the gumball guy. Let me tell you what's going on in there. No, I mean, it's like a wonderful opportunity for me, I think, to this is not like a guy's perspective, right? That's just kind of generic.
Yeah, because you've been in there.
But yeah, I don't even, it's like, to me, that's just like kind of a little bit generic and like, oh, well, let me see what does a guy think? Like, if I'm a girl, I don't really want to know what a guy thinks. I want to know what a guy thinks who knows about this type of behavior, who's seen it like all. Because when you spend 15, 16 years living in New York City and in, other places, right? So it's college in South Carolina. I grew up in Bermuda. I've been all over the country and many places in the world. And I've seen this type of behavior. Now, having worked with you to work through it and talk through it. Now,
we've been working through this for a solid year, going through the content, combing through it. And you actually wrote every single question in. Like, we would sit and brainstorm and decide what behaviors belonged in what categories, so that when the quiz is done and the assessment is, I keep saying quiz, but when you take the assessment and you get the results, and it's going to say, okay, this is the type of gumball guy he is, and then we're going to rank the flavors in the order of severity. So it's going to give you a percentage. So it'll come out, okay, out of all the time you spend with this guy, you're going to see about 20% of this behavior, 40% of this behavior. And those results, I mean, it's a game changer.
Yeah, and this is one of the great things about the assessment, the way, and we've run a number of girls have taken it.
Yeah. And by the way, I just want to say the assessment will be available to everybody after the first of the year. So we are offering exclusive access. We keep talking about this. People are like, where's this assessment? Where can I take it? So it will be available to everyone. It's on double
secret probation right now until it gets jazzed up. But
we have a beta version right now that you built. That's the one you built behind the scenes, so we could try this out.
Right. But so what we've kind of seen through the process of people taking this is, it's formatted in a way where you take the quiz with a particular guy in mind. And we've also done this for, non-romantic family and others, but just pick the kind of the guy you're interested in analyzing. Mm-hmm. And you go through the question, you go through the set of behaviors, and you're going to this is what I think we've discovered, is that girls who would never be able to identify a particular type of behavior in the guy that they're with, or that they can't get over, or the guy that they want to be with, or whatever the category of type of guy, but they'd never be able to identify this behavior, but they come back and the quiz results or assessment results damn, this guy is 65% or 30 say 30 out of 50 answers in the arouse me column, and I didn't see that. I couldn't really see that it's all about sex for this guy. Mm-hmm. Or the idolize me guy, it's all about telling stories and being the center of attention and having people fawning over him, and
yeah. So let's use that example. Let's just say we have like a arouse me, idolize me guy. So let's say you take the assessment and you get that result, and now I used to have to sit and coach girls and, okay, tell me how you met and what's the backstory. Now you can start with the assessment, and now I see the results. You
got it right away. You know what the guy is. And she, for a girl taking this, you're going to be I think really surprised. And this is going to be tough for anybody taking this type of thing. I've taken it on, several girls that I've dated, and and I know this content really well, and I've identified
I didn't know that. Interesting.
Yeah. Well,
Wow.
But when you kind of look at that type of output, it's tough. It's tough to really sit there and think about. I'm oh my God, this is.
It is tough.
Yeah.
I know. But it tells you exactly what's going on immediately. So it just cuts to the chase. So you have to be ready. Okay, it's going to literally strip this person down, and you're going to see these are the behaviors that are manifesting in this addiction. So if this guy leads with, I need to be idolized, I need to be the center of attention, he's the storyteller. Constant praise combined with an arouse me guy. This is a guy that's probably out in the bars, telling stories, picking up women. But if he's good looking and he's good at it, we always kind of think of a cheesy version, but we can't think of it that way. We have to think of the guy or the girl that you're really attracted to in there, because they're in their element, and if they can command an audience. It depends on the type of guy. Not every idolize me storyteller guy they're not all 6'7" and, delicious looking. Some of them are total dorks, but they come in all different versions. But some of us are attracted to the nerdy, dorky guy who also is the idolize me. It does. There's so many different people and so many different combinations.
Yeah, the fat funny guy.
The fat funny guy who, you didn't think you were attracted to him at first, and then all of a sudden you've laughed so hard, and now you start to see this cute version, or he is kind of cute, and now you're won over, and you don't realize this guy's just been telling stories nonstop. He's never asked anybody any questions. He's buying drinks. He's that guy that is the center of attention, and it kind of gives him that celebrity feel. And so then you take the assessment and you're okay, you got to idolize me, arouse me. So he's sexual to you. He's very charismatic. And so you combine chemistry, sensuality, charisma. It's that's a dangerous combo. So you can take this assessment and say, okay, what is it that I'm dealing with, so that I can kind of rein myself in.
And I, in full disclosure, when we started talking about all this stuff, one of the things that made me, is we term it the queasy armpits, that makes me feel a little uncomfortable reading. I did have some of that idolize me behavior in me, and especially when I was in New York. But that was the environment that I was raised in, and, sometime in the future.
It's survival.
Yeah, sometime in the future, I could talk to, for many, many hours about my own past, and how I was basically in 9 different schools in the course of basically age, 3 and through when I graduated from college, and then just continued on to job, to this place, to that place. And so it was like constantly trying to
cope. It was your coping
mechanism to try to impress people, to try to be accepted by them. But I think one of the great things to what you were saying earlier is that when you used to coach girls, they would, you would get an hour and a half of the backstory, and he did this, and I said this, and we did this, and it's kind of like a lot of like unnecessary, and I think.
Well, what it does is I can still hear those details, but if I have the diagnosis of the guy, if I know the flavors of attention ahead of time, so now when you do this coaching package, you take the assessment first, then I see the guy, even if he's an ex, he doesn't have to be in your life right now. People think they have to have a boyfriend or somebody in their life, but I think it's super powerful. I mean, you and I took it about our exes, and I was shocked. I was fooled by my own freaking assessment. And it changed how I looked at a past relationship immediately. And I sat there at this desk and thought, oh, that is true. And it really changed how I thought about the relationship, how he manipulated me in that relationship. And so even if you do it on past people, it really helps you to see, oh, that's because even though it's in the past, we still think about it. We still wonder, like, what happened there? What was wrong? What did I do? And when you can have this kind of diagnosis, I probably need to think of a better word, but I do feel like it's a diagnosis of this is the person, this is the issue. And you said really quickly, we're doing this on non-romantic relationships. So we created the same quiz and we kept the same 8 flavors of attention. So even to include if someone had sexually abused you, so you could take it on a parent, a sibling, brother, sister, friend, coworker, boss, everywhere.
Coworker, friend, family member, especially people you've spent a lot of time around and have been influential in your life. I think that's where what we've been theorizing is that the type of behavior that you've experienced through your life, or you've been kind of conditioned to maybe fantasize about, that's the kind of guy you want, or whatever.
Or are the people in your life?
Yes,
also
I'm saying you're going to see a lot of crossover.
So, but yeah, I think like when people do the coaching and they're able to take the quiz on both types of relationships, whether they're non-romantic. So you're going to be able to have a list of I'm going to take the quiz on my parents, on my siblings, anybody that you're working with, the most influential relationships, either current or past. And then you can look at the behaviors or the flavors of attention that they may have. Like, are these Gumball people? Have they been these transactional relationships that you didn't realize? Because transactional means I can't build meaningful connection. It means I can't have a strong relationship. And I know you and I have talked about how I've struggled over, my whole life of trying to have deeper more meaningful relationships with people I can't have in my family it's sad. It can't have that kind of connection. And that also comes from the movies. Like, you see people with perfect families and you're like, oh, why can't I have the perfect grandma? I had a grandma that was nice and one that wasn't so nice, to me at least. And I was like, I don't want this grandma experience. This is not the grandma that I've seen in the movies. Right. So what's going on here? And if I would have had this information then, and even having it now, it saved me. Like, that's why we're here, because this saved me from having expectations from people that I really can't. And so I want people to know that you'll be able to take the assessment on as many people as you need, but really focusing on the most influential. And then you'll see, oh my God, I am constantly entertaining people. I've got people that are always, it's the people pleaser. You'll really see as a people pleaser what you're feeding.
What, you don't like my juggling? Like, what jumping jacks? Maybe I'll dance over here, do cartwheels. Like, what is it? And you find yourself jumping around and doing the things that that was maybe from your youth, right? And from your family. And then you find yourself in a relationship with a guy and you're doing the exact same thing because you've been preconditioned to do it your entire life.
Yes.
And not just do it, but accept it as like, oh, this is kind of normal, you know?
Yeah. And I feel like boundaries has been the hardest thing. I think it's the hardest thing for people that are people pleasers. It's like, oh, you need to have better boundaries. Like, what does that actually mean? But you can take this assessment. Look at the people, understand if they are the gumball addict, where they lean. Some people are more severe than others, so you'll be able to see, okay, yeah, this person they might have tendencies, but the percentages are low. So you can say, all right, in that instance, I can spend time around that person, but I'm going to lower my expectation a little bit in these areas, or I'm going to know that this person is an idolized me person, so they are a storyteller. So they might not, like, if you're an idolize me, listen to my story, center of attention person is probably not your best go-to for, hey, I have a really big problem and I want to sit down over coffee and discuss it. But sometimes that person can be available in that way occasionally, but not most of the time. And so you just go, okay, if I'm going through something, don't call that person. So you have this in your mind. So, I mean, I'm just so excited for people to have this.
Yeah, boundaries and expectations.
Yes.
And, not getting caught up in the fantasy that somebody's just automatically going to change, or that they've changed magically overnight and because they acted a certain way in a particular encounter, like, hey, you have to watch for the patterns over time. And this is one of the great things about the assessment is like and the overall coaching package really is you'll be able to understand this behavior. First of all these things that we're talking about, the 8 flavors of attention. So you'll be able to understand that, you'll be able to identify it. And yeah, it's a little uncomfortable.
You get the queasy pits.
Yeah. To see it in romantic and otherwise relationships. And then you're able to predict it. That's the part that's like most kind of like disturbing
but also empowering. At first it's like, I don't want to know this, but also once you know it, then it's like you can't unsee it. And then you are empowered to no longer be blindly manipulated and not understand what is going on. Why is this person doing this? Why do they do this sometimes and not others? You'll be able to differentiate it immediately.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we have a disagreement on the other aspect of so anyone who kind of manifests this type of behavior, let's say it's a parent of yours, or someone older than you, or someone that you've met at some point through your life. Like, they have their own past too, right? Mm-hmm. So we don't all live in a bubble where everything kind of like funnels into you, and you're dealing with people who don't have their own past as well. So I would love to be able to help people. I mean, I think the probability of being able to help some of these very serious, and a lot of them are very serious gumball people, to try to help them. It's not like see the error of their ways, but just to be a little like objective and introspective about themselves, and to like, what? Yeah, I do that. And, now let me think about it. Mm-hmm. Like, where did I get this behavior from? Yeah. Because I didn't just like get born like this and all of a sudden I'm, this particular way. So, I would love to be able to kind of like, this is probably years in the future, but branch out and give a little bit of guidance to people who are the subject of the assessment. So you take it about a particular person, and then, you find out that they are a particular way. I would love to be able to, at some point, try to reach those people and let them know, let them know, but kind of like dig a little bit deeper into their own past, so they can help understand where those behaviors are coming from. But I think generally speaking, as a rule of thumb, like, most of these people are hardwired to be that way, and they are not going to change. And
Yeah, I think there are some that are hardwired, but some that are salvageable. Some, like, if we can use this assessment to look at severity. And for everyone listening, look, this is all an ongoing research project that's going to continue for years and years. So we're going to be able to look at statistics over time. So in building this assessment, we're having a custom design so we can get the reporting so we understand. So we're going to understand over time, like, what people are salvageable. And I think the people that are salvageable are the people that are willing to question it. Like, so many girls come to me, Melissa, I'm so worried I'm the gumball girl. And maybe you have some tendencies, but typically people that are self-reflective really aren't addicted to that behavior, but we might have some of those coping mechanisms. Like maybe, we do a little bit of pity me because, we can tend to feel sorry for ourselves. Like that could be something like, oh yeah, I see that. I might see that in myself. So I feel like the more self-reflective people can be, the more hope that there is. But when you were saying that, I remember early on, I told you I felt like God put on my heart, have compassion for the gumball guy. At the time I was writing, I was like so annoyed by compassion. This guy ruined my life. Like, how would I have compassion? But I realized when you have compassion and you can see like this person does have a past. They are struggling. They are doing this. These are coping mechanisms.
It's learned behavior.
Yes.
It's not,
Yeah. And so when you can see them from that perspective, it does a beautiful thing. It takes the pressure off of you because that person can a lot of times be blaming you for everything. And so you can look at it and go, okay, I know you're blaming me for everything, but you're a arouse me, idolize me guy. I can see the results. So although they're blaming you for everything, you now are empowered by seeing what's going on.
They're blaming you, but you're blaming yourself, I think is probably the broader message, is that we want to, be able to speak to girls and empower them to understand that the guy that they're dealing with, who probably a combination of is blaming them for all the dysfunction, blaming the girl, and they blame themselves because they're like, well, it must be because I'm not enough, or some other justification to themselves to say like it's me, it's not something going on with them. So I think through this process, you'll be able to kind of work through that healing, which I think is the most important part, because, healing from past relationships and trying to help identify who you really are, what you really want, and the type of guy you want to be around, not the type of guy that you've kind of been programmed from youth.
Yeah, exactly.
Looking for,
No, I think it's a great point because we do blame ourselves. At this point, a lot of times when you're taking this assessment, you'll probably be in love with the guy or you have very strong feelings. And so everything he said that's blamed you, you've really taken it hard, it hit home. And so these results will be, I think that, as I've laid out this coaching program, I want to spend time with each girl for 4 sessions so we can go over it, whether you're in a relationship or you're just going through a breakup or you've been single for a while and you want to look at let me look at the guys that I've dated. Maybe you were married and you're like, the dating scene is so weird and dating apps are crazy and everybody's in a different situation. So if you've taken a break or you are feeling like, I want to take a break, but I'm afraid because I'm 35 and, I want to be married and I want to have kids. So if I take a break, then that means I'm losing that time. And what if I miss whatever situation you're in? I think that this process will level you up. The whole idea is leveling up your mindset, your lifestyle, how you see things so that you have a perspective that's now unique and you don't have to sit and wait for the relationship to evolve into whatever it's going to evolve in. You have a little bit of empowerment to say, okay, I'm going to take the assessment on this guy. I'm going to see what are the behaviors? What are their patterns? Are there attention seeking things that I need to be watching? And then how bad is it? And if it's so bad, then that's what we're here for. We can say, look, this likely won't change. So how much more time do you want to invest? Or look, like you said, if there's enough other behaviors that are saying, okay, yeah, he may not be there, listening with bated breath with everything you're saying, but he does take an interest in you. He does, blah, blah, blah. If he does a lot of, we can assess it and look at it from different perspectives to help you make these decisions. But I always say there's no rush in making the decision. You're never going to work with us and we're going to say, you need to break up with this guy in 2 weeks, or you really need it. Like, I never do that. So anyone who's thinking of working with us, this has to evolve in your own timeline. So, so I think let's go through what they get. They get 4 1-hour sessions, one with you and me. And I will say, if you want more with Ian and I together, then absolutely, I'm open to that. And also, each session will be customized exactly to what you need. So we've created a menu of all the topics that we think you could potentially cover. So if you're like, okay, I've never done coaching before, I don't even know where to begin, we've created a menu where you can say, okay, let me at least start from here. Like, I've been out of the dating game for a long time. I don't know where to begin. We can do a whole coaching call just on that, helping you even figure out where you're starting. 2, I'm going through a breakup and I'm stalking his social media every day. I don't have the strength to block him yet. Or I feel like I don't even want to date right now. I feel grossed out by everybody. I'm not over my ex yet. Whatever it is, I want people to understand that you can come to this Level Up for Love and say, okay, this is what I need. And then we will add our tools to that process to make the whole thing come together. So you'll get access also to the Gumball Love Assessment, which I did not think the non-romantic piece would be available, but it is going to be available. So you'll be able to take the assessment on exes, current relationships, and those that are non-romantic. So I really do like thinking about taking the quiz on somebody that you looked up to as a child. I think that is a really great idea of just thinking about, were you even looking up to a gumball type person, and you didn't realize it? That's kind of creepy, but it's very revealing. So you'll be able to take the assessment on as many people as you want, and then you'll start to understand who you're attracted to and why. So you get both aspects of that. You will also get the one-on-one session with Ian and I, as I mentioned. We are adding Voxer access. So you will be able to access me via Voxers. If you're not familiar with Voxers, it's kind of like texting. You can voice message me. You can say, hey, Melissa, after our session, I thought about XYZ and, this is where I am, because I want to kind of hear how you're doing as you're going through the process. And to add to that, we have a client hub. And the client hub is, we log into it at each session. We set goals. I say, okay, what do we want to accomplish? And it gives you a place to kind of journal your thoughts. And then you can tag me. You can just put @Melissa in there. Or you can say @Ian. I want you to, this is what I'm thinking. And it's super helpful that when we can hear what's going on in your mind. Or if you're struggling, if you're like, I've thought about this, but I'm struggling here and this is where I want to focus. It helps us to get that next session ready to go and where we're in the right mindset to help you. And we're not starting from scratch right from the, you don't have to over explain. This is what I hated about therapy is I felt like I was spending all this time explaining backstory and then I just want to hear the advice, but then I would talk too much and then I wouldn't get to the advice part. And then he would spend 10 minutes and then I would be like on the edge of my seat and then he would be like, okay, well,
that's $200, please. Thank you.
Yeah. It's like, okay, I talked for 10 minutes and then I would get so mad at myself. So I did get more organized in therapy. So this is kind of inspired by that so that you are prepared. And then after this coaching, I'm going to start an application process to be a part of a VIP elite masterclass where each week we get together, because obviously in 4 calls, it's a lot for people to handle. Like, you've taken the assessment on all these people, you are working through whatever your current situation is. And now I don't want to just throw you to the wolves and say, good luck with all that information. I want to establish a way that you can stay connected not only to us, but also to other like-minded women. And maybe we'll even have guys in here. I've got a couple messages from shout out to the dudes out there. I think they're 10% of the listeners, but hopefully, babe, you'll bring some more dudes in. And because there are good guys and they're dating gumball girls. And so,
Oh, yeah.
I'm hearing from that. So we're working on how to support you on an ongoing basis, because I feel like people are kind of lonely. It's COVID and people are, going through the more of a virtual environment, and online dating has more, it feels more restrictive. And so the climate is just creating a more difficult way in meeting people. And these kinds of struggles are hard to do on your own. And so I think one-on-one is to really establish a foundation, and then moving you to that group coaching is something that I really would like to see a lot of people do. I think it'll be an amazing piece. So that's it. I think that we could end there. It's a great way. So if you're interested, reach out to me, melissa@gumballlove.com. If we have a link available, we'll put it in the show notes. If the link isn't available, because I'm literally building the sales page for this as we speak, so stay tuned. But if you're interested, just shoot me an email and we'll keep you informed of all the details. So
yeah, just reinforce everything you said, and just hope that anybody listening or anybody you may know who is going through this struggle, and it's just important to try to spread the word to folks. You could be a friend of yours that's in one of these type of relationships, or a family member, and you want to give people a different perspective on things. It certainly did for me, and we're here to help, and I think that's just our primary focus, and we really just want to help people kind of understand what's going on out there.
Awesome. Podcast number 2 under your belt. Good job.
Holla, holla.
All right, guys. Until next time, I'll see you soon.
Bye now.
Thank you so much for listening. If you want more information, or to schedule a private coaching session, or better yet, to join the next Back to You Academy, go to gumballlove.com. If you loved this podcast, I would love for you to share it with your friends. And if you really loved it, a 5-star review is the best compliment you can give. Remember, you are enough, you are right where you should be, and the only thing you have to do is keep going. I'll leave you with my favorite quote by Henry David Thoreau. Go confidently in the direction of your dreams and live the life you have imagined. Until next time, I'll see you soon.